Hey, I'm Butterfly.
Hey, I'm Firefly.
Have you ever wondered if we aren't being told the truth about everything?
What have we been lied to about? Join us as we have conversations and ask questions about everything. We invite you to keep an open mind and consider the unfathomable.
Let's break the chains that enslave our minds. Come on, let's go down the rabbit hole.
What's up, Butterfly?
Hey, Firefly, how's it going?
Good. It's great to see you again. I'm so excited to be doing another episode.
So am
What
I.
are we talking about today?
Well, I think what we decided to talk about is Hollywood.
Holy weird.
Or, yeah, I like to call it Hollyweird
Yeah.
because I think that kind of describes it.
Babylon fading.
It's, we all love to watch movies and TV shows, and we like to
Totally.
be entertained.
I
You know what
have
I mean?
spent many hours
Yeah.
watching both.
I mean, people like entertainment. We like to watch a good movie. But
Do you have to drink Kool-Aid when you watch something, though?
well,
I'm wondering.
a lot of the movies I think we talked about this in our last episode, they're putting out messages about the drinking of the Kool-Aid, so to speak.
Yeah.
I mean, there's sort of what we said was predictive programming, showing us like what's going to happen or what they want to happen and sort of train
It's
the
always kind of
masses.
like those people who are in the cult, they are the haves in the future, and all of the have-nots are going to be doing like Hunger Games, like UFC fights for food.
Right. Um, but I think what we're going to kind of get into a little bit more today is the actual, like behind the scenes, the kind
The
of,
dynamics of the cult,
yeah, the
kind
actual
of.
like cult Hollywood thing, which I mean, it really is a cult. Like you can't you can't be successful in Hollywood unless you are a cult member, you know?
And what do you think it entails? Like, I mean, joining the cult, is it like the old adage of they sell their soul? And that's really what it is?
That is so funny that you brought that up because I was just going to mention that. Like, you know how there's all like movies that where they show like some devil type person and they have like a scene where they're like, you can have this, but you have to sell your
The
soul.
Faustian bargain.
Yeah, they always have like those kind of scenes in movies.
Yes,
Um, well, I mean, actually, I think that's really what's going
I
on
think
in
so too.
Hollywood. You know,
And we've talked about how they reveal the method sometimes.
yeah,
I think they kind of tell you the truth.
they're kind of telling you, I mean, they make it very, sort of symbolic and very theatrical in these movies, but actually, there is that going on in Hollywood. Like you really
I
have to
think so
sell your
too.
soul in order to be, you'll never be an A-lister or even a B-lister in unless I mean, so I kind of have some firsthand knowledge in some of this stuff and
We saw it.
yeah, and I saw
Or you
it
know people who saw
and
it.
I know people, and after many years of watching people be a part of this, I what I saw is you might, if you're like a regular person, you might, and you're trying to be an actor or whatever, you might get into like some commercials or maybe even like a small part in a TV show or some indie films or whatever, but you will never be an A-lister or even a B-lister because a lot of
And
the
that's so funny because I just saw a video the other day and they showed how like there's this goddess Osiris,
hmm,
and I think it's kind of like how you worship the devil a little bit.
hmm, hmm,
And they have like this thing where they put their arms across their chest,
yeah,
and it showed all of the different people who were doing that pose in photographs.
yeah,
Because I think that what they say is, okay, we're going to make you an A-lister, but you have to go take a picture doing this pose. And kind of, I think you have to like you have to reveal your
Their
loyalty to that God.
allegiance. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
have you seen all those pictures of like various movie stars all posing with like one hand over their eye?
Yeah.
It's really bizarre. Like
And
nobody,
it's like some of my favorite people.
yeah, and it's really weird. It's like
You
people
know
in.
who I saw doing that
Mm,
was Paul Newman. Okay,
oh
so
gosh.
my dad was a big fan of Paul Newman, and I bought him a book that was like Paul Newman's life story.
Mm-hmm.
And it was written at the end of Paul Newman's life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he was just like reflecting on his life. And on the cover of the book,
He's got the one hand over his
Paul
eye.
Newman's got a freaking hand over his eye.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it could have been nothing.
Yeah.
Maybe it was like, oh, I just forgot, but it didn't look like it was nothing,
Well,
especially when you take into consideration like Katy Perry and
mhm.
all those like Jay-Z people. They all do that kind of covering of the eye thing.
Yeah. And the thing is, we've talked about this in other episodes, and we'll probably have one episode just devoted only to coincidences. We're going to do that, I think.
Yeah.
Um, but, when you see one or two people doing that, or maybe like 10 or 20, or maybe like 50 or
You're
60,
like, oh, those
you're
people
like,
are in the fringe. Those are like,
yeah,
that's their thing.
they just happen to take a picture with one hand covering their eye. But when you see literally like hundreds and hundreds,
Every one of them,
every one of them,
like anybody who's anybody,
they all have a picture of that,
you got to.
Yeah. So,
Which makes me kind of wonder about someone like Mel Gibson, because
yeah,
I wonder if he was so famous that they couldn't really stop him. And I wonder if he was able to like be one of the people who didn't have to join the cult, or is he like controlled opposition where he's like telling people, I'm not in the cult, but he's actually really in the cult?
I think he's in the cult. They're all in the cult. You don't get to be an A-lister unless you're in the cult. You know what I mean? And
Or
even,
maybe what he did was he got in the cult so he could become a big star, but
yeah,
then he tried to get out.
yeah,
But
I
then he
think.
realized, I don't think you're allowed to get out.
Well, that kind of brings me to my next little thing that I wanted to mention is like, so, A-list people are like, like the top movie stars, right? The really famous people.
Denzel.
Yeah, Nicole Kidman, whatever,
Yeah.
all these people that we know. But there's a lot of like B-listers, like the people that, yeah, you kind of know them, but they're not like super duper famous, like
Yeah.
movie stars. But a lot of the people that think that they're going to be A-listers and maybe they were promised that, when they sold their soul, they like maybe sort of like fall from grace in that category, or they're just not as well liked as the cult thought that they would be, and
Yeah.
they sort of get demoted to like B-list, and so they become B-list. And
Like Sharon Stone.
yeah. Or like Tara Reid, remember her from
Tara Reid.
American Pie?
I
Like
think I
I
remember
think
her.
she thought she was going to be like an A-lister, and I think a lot of those people think they're going to be A-listers, and they probably sell their souls and they do everything they're supposed to do, but they don't quite make it, so then they end up doing like the Shark Nation videos or whatever,
Yeah.
and they become the B-list or
The
C-list
cult
people.
finds something for him to do.
Yeah, they fall off that A list level. But um I think that is kind of like the thing that happens. And you just can't. I mean, some people think like, oh, if you say that, you're just bitter or whatever because you didn't like.
Show me somebody who made it without genuflecting to the cult.
Yeah,
Show me one person.
yeah.
Like we just talked about Mel Gibson, might be, but even then we're kind of like, probably.
He probably is. And did you ever see that show on Netflix called Hollywood?
No.
It was really now
I canceled my
it was
Netflix.
on Netflix, so there who
That's
knows?
full on
It's
propaganda.
full on
But
propaganda.
then again, what you'll get is them revealing the method on there.
Exactly. Well, there was this show called Hollywood, and it was pretty good. It was like about Hollywood in the back in the day where it was just kind of like beginning,
In the 20s.
yeah, it was all very glamorous and stuff, and it was all about like how these people had to like sleep with everybody to get in, and there was just a bunch of like gay Jewish men that were like wanting to sleep with all these really handsome actors, and
Wait a second. That sounds like kind of something that might be going on these days.
so I don't think it's changed a lot.
No.
I don't think it's changed a lot. I think it's
Well,
kind
that's
of
something that I'm like learning about. Like I can see like uh actresses, they kind of gotta, if you want to be famous, you're gonna have to probably have sex with like gross
like Harvey
old
Weinstein.
dudes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's gross.
So gross. But they do it because they're like, oh my God, I want to be famous. I don't care. And they
Yeah,
look at it like drinking Jägermeister. It's like, it
yeah,
doesn't taste good, but it's going to get me hammered.
yeah.
So I think that's kind of like the way they do it. But then I think now there's like this weird, like gay sex aspect to it that I've been learning about. Like, oh no, well, that guy actually had to get like butt
Ew.
in order to become famous. And it's like, so I'm wondering if that's like part of the cult
It's totally part of the cult.
initiation.
And you know what? Like
Sucky.
there's so many
I'd rather be
desperate,
homeless.
yeah. But there's so many desperate people who are, I mean, these people are desperate to be famous,
I know.
and they're willing to do anything. So they will sell their souls. And like another thing more recently, with the whole cooties fiasco,
Mhm.
um, Hollywood was like the biggest proponent of like pushing that whole thing. And they made it
Yeah.
so that anybody who was going to audition for any part or have any small part on any project, they all had to go get the poke, and they had to
And
get
that's like why Ice Cube was like kind of an anomaly. He was like, no, I'm not getting it. And then he lost a big role, apparently. Like,
apparent. Yeah.
you
Well, I
know,
heard Mel Gibson say he got the poke, which seems weird to me because it seems like wasn't he big enough to stand up and say, I don't want to do that? Like, be an example, But
yeah.
it's kind of weird. And that all of these like up and coming people that like are so desperate to get a part will do anything. So going and getting a poke or having like the
Do
the
you
swab
think,
shoved up to their brain, they'll be willing to do that.
yeah. Do you think, you're just making me think, is there a correlation between Me Too and the cooties? Because what did Me Too have in it? It was cancel culture, right? It was
Right.
like, 35 years ago, you felt her up and she's drunk on a picnic
So we're
table
going to
and
arrest you.
you're done now. You're done.
Yeah.
And it's like, maybe that was kind of like preparing people for, you didn't get the shot. You're
Mm.
done. You're canceled now. It was kind of like this introduction of cancel culture. Because if you think about it, the thing that kind of defined the cooties era was canceling. It
Mm-hmm.
was like, get this
Right.
shot. Remember,
They made
remember,
it out like it was some like cool thing
like
to do.
Stephen Colbert was
Like
like,
you got to be cool.
if you go to the doctor and you haven't gotten a shot, you don't get health care.
Yeah.
So I'm starting to see like the correlation. What's going on now is the cult is saying, no, no, no. Yes, we all sold our souls in order to have a career in Hollywood. But I think the cult's trying to say, you have to join the cult too.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't join the cult, you're not going to get anything. I kind
Well,
of see that kind of
I
happening.
think that's a really good point because I think, don't all cults want people in them so that they can control them? And it's all about control.
Like
So
like what was that one lady who was in Scientology and she escaped from Scientology and then she was like, and then they were like harassing my husband and then like this van was like following me around and then I got threats in the mail. It's like they don't want you to like
they
leave.
don't want you to leave. They
No.
want you in there to control you, and they don't want you to leave. And you must be reading my mind because I was gonna just bring up Scientology because that's kind of like a cult within a cult. You know what I mean? Like it's
John Travolta's like going, how dare you?
dare you, but I mean that's like a cult in itself. But then there's like the Hollywood cult that's in the Scientology cult. Like they're like double cult.
It's
You know
double,
what I mean?
but the dynamics of the Scientology cult kind of have become like the dynamics of American society in a weird way. Why? I watched a video about Scientology. It was started by this guy L. Ron Hubbard,
Yeah.
and L. Ron Hubbard was like this failed. science
he
fiction
just like
writer.
made up this whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was literally a science fiction writer
Right.
who sat around like coming up with like weird stories about people like on different planets and exploring the universe and kind of like Star Trekky kind of like thing,
Hmm.
which I think there's kind of a Star Trek vibe with Scientology.
Totally.
Like these people who have you ever heard about these people who are so into Star Trek that they change their identity on their driver's license and says, "No, this is my Klingon name.
Oh,
I'm
no.
I'm a Klingon.
Wow.
You have to participate in my
That sounds sort of like the transy thing.
yes.
Okay.
You have to participate in
In
their
my mental
psychosis.
psychosis.
Their psychosis, you have to be like, oh, I'll play too.
Okay,
Let's
Klingon.
play. And I think what's going on with Scientology is kind of interesting in that it's a science fiction that you have to kind of buy into.
Totally.
And I'm thinking, wait a minute, that sounds like what's going on in America.
That's super weird. They were building a new Scientology building. Not maybe a few years ago, and
They're growing.
they were growing, and I was seeing like comments on like the Nextdoor. You remember that app Nextdoor where you could like go and like be like, oh,
Yes.
I found a lost parakeet in a bush down the street, or there's a garage sale here
There's
today,
a Scientologist 3 doors down.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh, good.
Well, there were people making comments about like the Scientology building, and they were, just saying various things. And I noticed that anything slightly negative, and those people were getting like flagged. And I just made a comment, like this was my comment. I was like, has anybody noticed that whenever somebody makes a comment about this building that's negative, they get flagged? And I was banned from Nextdoor.
How dare you?
How dare you notice? Like I didn't
You
even.
may not even come on Nextdoor app anymore.
I was totally banned. I mean, I wasn't even saying anything negative.
See, that's what I'm saying.
I was literally just saying, has anybody noticed that when
You got
somebody
me too.
comments, I got me too. I was banned. I was like, okay, fine, I don't need Nextdoor. But somebody,
No, but see, that's lame because Nextdoor is kind of cool.
they're total
And now
Nazis.
you can't even say stuff.
Yeah, no, Nextdoor is run by Nazis, totally like 1984 style people.
Which is crazy because it's
super
kind of
weird.
cool to kind of like have an app where you can kind of see what's going
Like
on.
where the next garage sale's at,
Yeah,
or
like my
like
cat got out
yeah.
and like your neighbor can go, I saw me over here. That'd be cool.
Totally. But I can't go on there anymore.
No.
I was banned.
Your cat
Yeah.
stays lost.
Yeah, totally.
No way.
Yeah, totally. And I remember this guy that I know who he was managing a business, and he knew me, and he sent me like a private email, and he was like, hey, he's like, don't comment on like
Do not
Scientology.
rock the boat.
Yeah, he goes, those people are like super dangerous and retaliatory. Like
Totally.
they will totally like go after you. And I was like, what is that all about? Like, and I didn't even say anything bad.
You know what's interesting
It's
because
super weird.
we're kind of like, oh, Scientology, that's some fringe cult. But no, I think that's kind of becoming the dynamics of our culture.
Mm-hmm.
Our culture. That's what we're living in now.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I think what's interesting, we're talking about Hollywood, and everybody has to genuflect to the cult in order to become an A-lister. And then we've also talked about this before, how Hollywood is the biggest propaganda machine ever.
Mm-hmm.
Like they've never had so much propaganda because people are so mesmerized by movies.
They're so mesmerized by like movie stars. Like
so I think what's
royalty.
going on, so you have to be in the cult to make movies. Now they're pushing out this propaganda. So all these people are controlled by the media and controlled by the movies, and they idolize these people. I mean, they literally idolize Leo DiCaprio. It's like, oh my God,
yeah.
I saw Leo. It's like, dude, who cares? That guy's kind of annoying. I wouldn't even really care if he was sitting at McDonald's next to me. I probably wouldn't even go up to him and start rapping out.
No,
I don't care
about
that dude. But the other people would be like, oh my God,
well,
Leo.
You know what's kind of like turning into the new Hollywood now is YouTube. Like the YouTubers are, and I'm like, this is super weird to me because they'll show themselves like at the mall or whatever, and somebody will come up to them and be like, want their autograph. And I'm like, why? Like, what did those people do? And it's like, oh, well, they're YouTubers.
Yeah.
They're not
That's
even,
so
they
funny.
don't
My
even have to
girl,
learn lines and like, act.
my daughter showed me a picture of one of her friends, and she was like, "Oh, here's my friend in Las Vegas," and she saw a YouTuber that she knows.
And it's exciting to them.
And it's like, oh, so she took a selfie. It's like, oh, this is a
Yeah.
YouTube. So now there's like a new celebrity
Yeah.
culture, and celebrity is the crux of it, right?
Yeah.
Well, the celebrities are the in crowd. They're the ones that are in the cult. You don't get to be a celebrity unless you
Join the cult.
join the cult. You have
Mm-hmm.
to genuflect. And why would it be any different for social media and for like videos and like the new media?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in order for you to be promoted by YouTube, you have to be in the cult.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're not going to promote
They're
your
not
stuff.
gonna, no, it's true. So, it's like if you want to like become an A-lister even on YouTube, I think you got to join the cult, you know?
I wonder why Weinstein got like put away. Why'd they get sick of him?
Um, well, do we know for a fact that he's been put away?
That's true, but like,
You
why
know,
did he have to have like this spectacular, very public downfall? Is that
he's like the fall
show?
guy. I think it's show. I mean, why was it so spectacular and very public? They had to make a big
Like
ordeal
the
of it.
Me Too movement was kind of like predicated on him like
Raping everybody.
raping everybody. But is it rape if you're like, I want to be a star, I'll suck your dick? It's like that's not rape,
Well,
okay?
and is it rape if like you go back like 8 or 10 times
8 or 10 times.
over the course of like 5 or 6 years?
They're like,
I
tell
kept
me,
going back and getting raped by him
yeah,
over and over.
tell me, what happened when he got raped? Well, Harvey called me at 3 in the morning and told me to come up to his hotel room. It's like, well,
I didn't want to go.
I didn't.
I didn't want to go, but
He said
I
he was going
went.
to be talking about business at 3 in the morning in his hotel room. Okay,
And then I got there and he was wearing a robe and
yeah,
I didn't want to go in, but I went
yeah.
in and I had a glass of wine and
And they took advantage of me and raped me, but then I got put in a movie. So I guess I kind of needed to be raped. I don't know. It's really weird because I just feel like this whole cult mentality is Hollywood has kind of, in a weird way, I think it's running its course. I
I
think
think so
Hollywood's in
too.
decline.
I think that's why YouTube and stuff like that are becoming bigger.
Yeah,
I think it's kind of moving away from Hollywood. Although people are never going to be done with Hollywood because people want to be entertained. People want to watch
they do.
movies.
But
You know what I mean?
I think the era of going to a movie theater and watching a movie is done.
Yeah.
People that can watch a movie on their phone. So now there's this new crop of cult members and they're podcasters.
Right.
But I think
Does that mean that we're in the cult?
we're not, we're gonna
We're
be like,
the
remember
anti-cult.
remember in the 90s, like it was like, oh, they're alternative. There's like
Right.
mainstream music, but then there was alternative.
Yeah. And then that turned mainstream.
And then that turned mainstream. But then I'm wondering if like maybe we could be like, at least for the time being, like Nirvana. We're Nirvana to the Bon Jovis.
Yeah. We're like Nirvana before they turned mainstream.
That's right. We're like Bleach era Nirvana, and like Ben Shapiro is like John Bon Jovi.
Yeah. Totally.
He would be stoked on that. He'd be like, yeah, pretty
Oh,
much.
cool.
I get chicks too.
Oh my gosh. Well,
But yeah, I think you're right. I think it's interesting to unpack the dynamics of all of those people being in a cult
mhm.
because, and then having it be this powerful influence in our culture. What is going on there? You know what I'm
Well, I
saying?
mean, that's the big thing right there is that it does have a huge influence on people.
Oh my God.
I mean, like we talked about with our movie episode, most people watch these movies and they don't even realize that it's like a metaphor of things that are happening in real life.
Yeah.
They don't see the similarities between Hunger Games in real life.
Yeah.
Like, but I mean, that's kind of the point is that I think they get all of these people in there and, some of them are MK Ultra, they're totally mind controlled. And then when they do try to leave the cult, they get like reprimanded. And remember, did we talk about Anne Heche? Remember when she was like racing down the road, and then like
The door cam caught her going like 90 down
yeah,
a neighborhood.
and then like I think it was like she crashed her car or something, and that video of the paramedics like pulling her out with the sheet over her, and then she like sits up and they shove her back down and
Like,
put the
no.
sheet. No, you're dead. Remember, you're dead.
It was almost like they're filming a movie and she forgot her line.
Yeah.
And it was like, no, no, no.
But I mean, like, what paramedic is going to shove somebody back down and put the sheet over their head?
Yeah.
Wouldn't they be like, oh my gosh, let's resuscitate her, you know?
It kind of felt like the lesbian Secret Service lady when Trump was getting assassinated.
Yeah.
It was like, wait a second.
Wait a second. Let's
Something doesn't look right
take
here.
2.
First of all, like, why was Anne Hesh going like 90 miles an hour down the street? Like that. Nobody's in that much of a hurry.
Yeah.
It was like a neighborhood street.
I think sometimes some of these people try to maybe get out of the cult,
That might have been.
and they don't like that. They don't like it when you try to get
I don't think
out.
you're allowed to leave the cult.
No.
I think once
you know too much.
once you sell your soul, that
You
means
signed on the dotted line.
you're going to go to hell.
Mhm.
You enjoy, but when your heart stops beating, there's like a demon going, okay, this way.
And you agreed to the terms.
You said that. You said that's fine.
That's fine.
I think these people don't have a concept of how gnarly hell could possibly be.
Mhm.
I think people kind of think, well, all my friends are going to be down there. I think we're going to just be partying down there. I don't think it works that way.
And I think they think the payoff is worth it. They're going to be famous.
And that's why I think you see a lot of these people like Nancy Pelosi just clinging to life. You know what I'm saying?
Maybe that's why they want to live forever.
That's why.
Because
they know they've already kind of made the arrangements.
Yeah.
They've got their bed made on the other side. So they want to try to live here. And I think that's what this like Peter Thiel and Elon Musk kind of like, we're just going to put this little electrode in your brain. I think that whole narrative is trying to convince the elites that maybe you don't have to die. You can upload your consciousness into this AI.
Yeah, and live here
forever.
And then you don't really have to go to hell. After all.
I mean, yeah. When we go ask Walt Disney, he cryogenically froze his head. So he must have thought at some point in the future, I'm going to be able to reanimate. No pun intended.
Oh my gosh. Where do you think his head is?
It's probably stored in like the 33 Club by Pirates of the Caribbean.
Well, he's like watching everybody.
Because you got to be, it's like exclusive. Like in order to go in there to eat, you have to be like in the Freemasons or something like that.
In the cult.
You have to be in the cult, right? So I think probably when you go in there, like they go, where would you like to sit? And you go, we'd like to sit by Walt's head. And they have like a special table where Walt's head is just like there. That's probably where it is.
I picture it like it's under that like glass jar that the head in is it the Haunted Mansion?
The Haunted Mansion.
Yeah, she's that head that she's like looking around.
Exactly.
It's totally real, and she's like following you.
Now it's got Walt Disney's head.
Yeah,
just
there's a similar one with Walt Disney's.
Oh
head.
God, it's so eerie. But I think that's what's going on with these people. They don't want to die.
Why do you think they only froze his head? Was it like maybe the technology at that time? They were like, we don't really have room to like keep your whole body, so we'll just take your head and then give you a new body.
Well, Walt Disney was probably like, well, I've got like man boobs and I'm all old. Maybe I'll just go with just a head, and then you can just take my brain, and my brain should have all my data, and you can just upload my data. So it's like taking the tower. You don't have to have the screen and the speakers and the printer. Yeah. You just take the tower. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Right. I think that's probably what's going on there. But I think that's kind of the idea is these people are like, okay, I'm going to go to hell. That doesn't sound great. It's, according to the Bible, hell's pretty bad. Mm-hmm. So it's probably going to be lame, but they're like, maybe I don't have to go there. I think that's what's kind of going on with these people now. You're kind of seeing them on this race against time. They're thinking they're going to find some kind of a loophole, and they're not going to have to burn.
Right.
That was in the Matrix. So the Matrix is kind of an interesting, first of all, talk about cult members. The two brothers who created the Matrix.
I know.
Now they're
sisters.
It's
kind of gross.
Yeah.
And weird.
Like, why, dude? Really?
They're in the cult.
I mean, so the cult.
You know what? Maybe that was part of their deal.
Okay.
So I start wondering about some of these things and these people that are pushing like all these different ideas. And I start thinking maybe that was like the deal they cut. So maybe with those
Everything's
guys,
fake. Nothing's organic.
yeah,
That was their
yeah,
role.
yeah. And they're like, okay, and then like, in 5 years, you two need to become chicks. And they're like, okay.
And they probably got told, we want you to make a movie where we reveal what the plan is. And the plan is that we're going to keep people mesmerized by the media so that we can basically harvest them for energy. And they don't even realize that they're just slaves because they're locked into this false reality. I don't think that those two transvestites or trannies, I don't know. I don't know if they're actually, if they got chopped or if they just dress like chicks. I don't want to know.
No.
That's TMI.
Yeah.
But I don't know if those two dudes that used to be dudes actually came up with the plot of The
Right.
Matrix. They probably came up with the dialogue and the characters that fit into that plot. But I think that plot
Was
is
already
the
plotted out.
cult is what controls, because I don't think the cult only controls Hollywood. I think the cult, you also have to genuflect to become a senator
Oh yeah,
or a
politics
president.
or the music industry, because the music
Yeah,
industry is exactly like Hollywood. They all have to sell their souls too. And so there's another weird I don't know if you've heard about this whole topic, but there's some people that say that all now I can't really believe that all, but I have to wonder about a few of these people. Um all of these A-listers they say are inverted. So, in other words,
gay.
no, in other words, like the women are men, really. They're really born men, and the men are born as women.
So weird.
That's super weird. I don't know if, I
So
mean,
Denzel's
that,
actually some African chick.
yeah. Like, I mean, that seems really out there. But you do have to like start to like wonder about some of them. Like, I mean, look at
Maybe
Sandra Bullock.
kind of manly
She's
looking.
kind of manly looking, and like a lot of these women, like they don't actually have their children. They either adopt them or they have like surrogates.
Yeah,
Like a lot of them have surrogates, and it's like, why do they all have surrogates?
because she's got a
Because they
package
can't.
down there.
It's interesting to think about. I don't know.
It could be. I know that they kind of like always want to play with androgyny.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember Marilyn Manson, his huge album was Mechanical Animals, remember? And
Mm-hmm.
he's clearly a cult member.
Totally.
And so he's coming out with Mechanical Animals, which was the name of the album. And then on the cover, he's this
He's like,
androgynous
yeah,
thing with boobs and then just kind of like nothing down there, but kind of a man face. And you're going, why? But there's kind of this recurring theme. And
yeah.
then I've also heard like, if a dude really wants to be big, they're gonna have to wear a dress. Have you ever seen this?
They do
Like
that.
Brad Pitt
They all
and
do that.
this other one, they all have to like have a movie where they're wearing a dress, and it's kind of like their penance that they have to
Yeah,
do.
it's like somehow they're paying their dues or something by doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and Brad Pitt, interestingly, back in 1995, he did a Rolling Stone interview, and I saw this recently. He said, and I guess he probably came off like he was joking, but he said, "My career really took off once I sold my soul to Satan."
A lot of them make comments like that.
Yeah.
And just like we've talked about before, you have to believe people when they say these things.
Yeah.
You know what I
Like
mean?
that's not really a funny joke.
No.
It's more like I'm telling you the truth and let's just brush it under the carpet.
Right. And people go,
Oh, that's
funny.
so
It's so
funny.
cute.
And like you saw Bob Dylan, like you're saying musicians. Did you ever see that interview with Bob Dylan back in 2004 with Ed Bradley on 60 Minutes?
Mm,
And Ed Bradley goes, "Wow, because at that time Bob Dylan was probably in his 60s.
hmm
And they go, still doing this after all these years. And he goes, I don't take it for granted. And he goes, I'm just holding up my end of the bargain. And Ed Bradley's like, what bargain is that? And he goes, oh, the one with the ruler of this world and the one that we can't see,
Interesting.
the commander.
hmm
And it was like, oh, you made a bargain with him? And he's like, yeah, a long time ago, and I'm holding up my end. So he's kind of coming out and like, why would he say that on 60 Minutes? Now, could it be that he was just messing around? Maybe, but that's like not really funny. It's not like I'm going to go, oh, that's classic, dude. Oh,
Yeah.
you made a bargain with the devil? That's so funny. Or
Right.
maybe he's just like, I think they have to kind of reveal that they are.
Uh-huh.
Maybe.
Yeah.
At some point they have to come out and say that. And then I also think maybe there's sacrifices going on.
Well, I think there's that too.
Because I was talking
Hmm.
to, maybe I was watching a video or something, and they were talking about how um, you'll see Hollywood stars just like kind of young, just all of a sudden
They
die.
just drop dead.
They're just dead now.
Yeah. Just for no reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Gene
Or
Hackman just died.
well, he was really old,
He was old.
but his the circumstances around that were kind of
Really
strange
weird.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think also what happens is, there's a lot of like drug overdoses and stuff like that that happen. But are they really?
Are they?
I think
I
like
don't trust any cause of death that I ever get
no.
told.
I think once some of them start to talk, maybe they start regretting that they sold their soul, or they start to, you know,
Try to escape.
they try to escape and they start to talk about
Then
it.
they gotta go
That's
live
when
them.
they get unalived.
They get unalived. And then the other thing that can get you unalived is if you're just unfortunately picked for a sacrifice. Like there was that one in Lake Piru about 4 years ago. Remember her? I don't remember
Yeah,
her name, but
the
she was an actress.
girl from Glee, Rivera. She was out on her boat, or
With her
somebody's
son.
with her son who
And
was like
then
4 years old.
yeah, and so just the 4-year-old is like in the boat, and then they
Yeah,
find her body in the
super weird. Like, what mother is going to take their young little child out on a boat by themselves? And then they said that she swam really hard and was able to save the child, but couldn't save herself. Like, that just doesn't even make sense.
their stories are always really far-fetched and weird.
And
And
people just go, oh, that's so sad.
but then I heard somebody saying, well, she was 33 years old. And,
That's like the magic
a
number.
lot of these cult guys are all into numerology. Like,
Mhm.
numerology is like really important. And there's like certain days that are
Mhm.
really important, like satanic sacrifices, feasts, and stuff. And I think they actually kill people.
A lot of them end up unalive when they're 33.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
interesting.
Yeah. A lot of them, it's really kind of scary, but like family members and people close to them end up unalive at certain points, just mysteriously. And
It's probably kind of like not cool for you if like your brother goes and genuflects to the cult and sells their soul. Now you might actually get kind
yeah,
of fucked with a little
yeah,
bit,
you might be
maybe
in danger.
a little bit. Like we've decided you're no longer reliable, kind of like in Soylent Green.
They'll make a deal like, you've got to sacrifice this person if you want to be famous.
Do you remember Eyes Wide Shut?
Yeah, it was super creepy.
It was. It was. Um, the guy who made that was Stanley Kubrick.
Hmm.
There's a lot of talk like, oh, he was in the cult, blah, blah,
Hmm.
blah, which I'm sure he was. But I've also heard he died like right after making that.
Oh.
And he wasn't really supposed to put that last scene in there. It was supposed to not be that. He kind of just threw that in there at the very end because he was making movies long enough where he kind of knew how to game the system and put in content that they didn't really approve.
What was the last scene?
So Tom Cruise is the doctor,
Hmm.
and he's married to Nicole Kidman, and they're kind of bored with their marriage. And he's like, I'm just so tired of just fucking Nicole Kidman. I want other pussy. And so he's like meandering outside the marriage, and then somehow he gets associated with this like piano player. And then the piano player says, I'm going to play this party tonight, and you could go if you want, and he gives them like the special password. So he uses the password to get into this cult party, and that's where the girls walk in and they are all butt naked, and then all the cult members are in robes around them. And then the one girl is telling Tom Cruise, you need to get out of here right now. You're in danger. And then the one guy is all like does the motion like go grab her, and then she goes and gets like unalived, you know and it's like all of a sudden, oh well, she just had a drug overdose, you know what I'm saying? But actually no,
Coincidentally.
she got unalived and she was sacrificed, and that's what like the guy was going around like picking which of the naked girls they were going to unalive for the night. and it was full on orgies everywhere. You know what I'm saying? And
So
I think maybe that might be real.
so that's really kind of what's
I
happening.
think so. I
Yeah,
think they have those kind of cult meetings,
I think
and these
so
people
too.
are obsessed with sex. They're also obsessed with Aleister Crowley. Have you ever learned about him?
I've heard about him.
Aleister
Mhm.
Crowley would do these like sex magic rituals, and he felt like he gained spiritual power from these sex magic
Mhm.
things. So it would be like a ritual with sex and casting spells and doing chants and stuff. And I think these people really buy into that kind of stuff.
I think so too. And that's what they get involved with when they join the cult. And I think so Stanley Kubrick kind of snuck that scene into the movie
That's the
to
word around the campfire. I don't know. Of course, you don't know any of this stuff, but he
right.
died right after making it, and he wasn't that old.
Didn't isn't he the one that filmed the actual moon landing too?
Oh, yeah. No coincidence there. You mean where the guy's talking on a phone like my mom had in her kitchen back in like 1979
Well,
with the big wires, and he's talking to a guy on the moon? It's like, and people just go, yeah, well, yeah, they
yeah.
were using fiber optics and stuff. It's like, but I don't get it. Wait, first of all, why does he have to have a wire into the wall if he's talking to somebody that's not on this planet? But anyways, I digress.
Well, I think that was maybe sort of like a beginning into Hollywood because we could actually talk for days probably,
Yeah.
and we can recap some of it on another episode. But
It needed to be touched on.
I think we needed to touch on it because Hollywood sort of controls a lot of what happens in our world, really.
Well,
They have such an influence.
what we're talking about in a lot of our episodes is how people are so controlled by the media,
Yeah,
and
easily
Hollywood
influenced.
is a big part of that.
Yeah,
There's,
they
you
all
know,
want to do what those people are doing. They want to wear what they're wearing, and so they're easily influenced by Hollywood.
like how many Hollywood stars were telling people to get the jabbies,
Totally.
and people were
And
going and
people were
getting them.
like, "Oh, well, Kim Kardashian says we should
She
do it."
says we should,
And actually, like, what are her qualifications? I think she just was like
She got
the
big
daughter
boobs and
of,
a big butt
yeah, and
and money.
she's just like the daughter of some rich lawyer, right? And she did like a sex tape or something.
That's all you got to do these
She's
days. That's all you got to do.
yeah,
And then she gets totally promoted. But if she ever came out and said anything like against the cult, she'd probably get unalived pretty
yeah,
quick.
totally.
Yeah. No, I think it's important to touch on this because we're being entertained by a satanic cult.
Hmm.
And we need to be aware of that so that you don't become influenced by it because they're not entertaining us. They're trying to brainwash us. I think that's
Exactly.
what it comes down to, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, that was awesome.
That was really fun.
I'm so glad we went down that rabbit hole. And then I can't wait to go down our next one.
We're gonna have a good one.
Okay. It was good seeing you,
You
butterfly.
too.